All right, people, we should be live. If you can just give me a quick confirmation in the chat that you can hear my voice and see my screen, and we shall proceed with today's live stream. It's Monday, the 2nd of December, 2024. Time is 10:30 UTC. Low sound? Whoever said low sound, see if you can turn up your audio, perhaps. Yeah, all right, cool. Everybody says loud and clear otherwise. So, as always, a special thank you to my product partners, OK Exchange, for sponsoring today's stream. As always, anything said in today's video is not financial advice. It is just my view of the market, more for educational purposes, and an insight of my thoughts and views of the market. So without further ado, we'll kick off the stream. Just give me a second. So all right, starting on Bitcoin, what do we think? Anybody what are we thinking in terms of pullback levels? Because my current position is that I still hold my spot Bitcoin, but I am hedged from 99. I do have a short position open, and I'm not sure what the market does next. I am leaning towards a corrective move over the next few weeks. But in terms of targets, what do you guys think? Do you think 90K? Do you think 85, 80, 75 as a corrective level on Bitcoin? All right, let's just have a look at the market then. So first of all, I think when I look at the high time frame Bitcoin chart, I think the key level for me, first of all, is this 95K level. I am leaning towards the possibility or probability that if you look at previous corrections on Bitcoin in a bull market, what's important is when you have this extensive rally, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of aggressive price action to the upside, it's not a surprise to see the market do not a great deal in terms of Bitcoin. You have 1, 2, 3 weeks of correction before you see continued upside, okay? And what's really important, and perhaps what I'm looking for over the coming weeks, is, as illustrated here, wicks into support, showing buyers stepping into the market, a good level of demand, okay? It's something that we've covered time and time again on streams, that when you look at pure price action, pay attention to a demand zone, but also pay attention to what the candles are telling you. And you can see here from the price action that there's been some aggressive buying at these levels, where eventually price continues higher. So the rule of thumb, or what I'm looking for, if we are to see something relatively similar to this structure, it doesn't have to be exact. The candle count doesn't have to be the same, but more or less, give or take, you know, either way, something to observe. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of expansion, 1, 2, 3 weeks of a correction, price pushing out of this consolidation, continuation pattern, trading higher. And again, when you look across at any corrective move on Bitcoin over the last several years from the previous cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candles of expansion. Again, 1, 2, 3 candles, relatively large wicks into that 40, 39K. Then you get price pushing. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3 weeks of correction, 4th week expansion, continued expansion into a rally higher. So looking at the chart here, I still believe as though we're very early. I still feel as though my expectation is perhaps we will see continued price action within this level or range. The question is ultimately, how deep is the correction going to be? Is it going to be 90k? Is it going to be 85? I don't know. And for that reason, until price can show me that between now and then, if there is any reason to trade above $101,000, then I will close my short. It's practically a hedge. Alternatively, if I get 90s, I'll probably start scaling after my shorts. And if I get 85s, 86, then I will be looking for long opportunities at the same time, leaving my short open, right? Because I'm looking to play both sides of the market. The short gives me downside protection if, for whatever reason, the market decides to sell off. But for now, my stance is that I'm continuing being net long. I've got my spot exposure. I'm looking for long opportunities in the market, and I do believe that this is now some sort of a corrective move in the market. And I don't believe that this is likely to be just the top just yet. With the amount of data that we have, I'm not convinced that those people who are calling top on Bitcoin, it's too early to tell as far as I'm concerned. So that's my high time frame view on Bitcoin. And ultimately, what I like about this is, again, when you can see that I've divided the chart into levels, and just note what I said here earlier. We've had let me just zoom into the chart. 1, 2, 3 weeks of expansion, 1 week, second week of a potential correction. Maybe we get a third week trading down into 90s or 85s, and then looking for expansion at some point over the coming weeks. Okay, that's, again, whether that happens, I'm not sure, but I'm just telling you that if that happens, then I certainly believe there will be some trade setups in play. I do believe that we will see further continued risk on in altcoins, where my expectations is for altcoins, for the best part, simply those have yet to run, is continuation higher. We probably will see these corrective periods on altcoins when Bitcoin pulls back. That's fairly much expected, and what I'd expect to see in these market conditions. Now, what's interesting is when I look at the daily chart, okay, when I bring up the trend scanner, we have the 12 and the 25 EMA. You can see the 12 is hovering at that 90k level, and we're currently holding. Let me just get rid of these two lines here on the chart. You can see that we're currently holding the 12 week. This is the 12 daily EMA, and then we've got the 25 daily EMA trading at $90,000. Okay. So the trend is still fine, even on the weekly chart. Zooming out now, in terms of moving averages, you can look at this and you probably assume, oh, hey, XO, look at the 12 and the 25 EMAs. They're all the way down at 80,000 or potentially down at 70,000. Do you think we could go all the way down there? Well, long story short, if you just give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So what I will say is, if you look at price action historically, look at this extension to the upside. Remember the 4 week extension? Look at where the 12 and the 25 EMAs were, right? So the longer price remains range bound for the next several weeks, it's highly likely to see the 12 and the 25 EMAs eventually push higher. Okay, where there's an amalgamation of price and the moving averages. If you run this forward, that's the first, second, 1 week, 2 weeks of correction, third week of correction, and then we saw continuation higher. Okay, so again, in this instance, don't be surprised to see the bands, the 12 and the 25 weekly bands push up higher into price, into this 85, 90k level. Okay, so I wouldn't pay too much context. Yes, this has been a fairly aggressive expansion from the bands. I don't think we will mean revert into the bands. I think the bands will push higher as price consolidates in this holding pattern, looking for this type of flag type of structure in a consolidation, and then hopefully get a second drive higher. So if this is one drive, maybe we get a second drive pullback into a 3 drives pattern. If that happens, we'll talk about that situation. But that's just, like I said, pure guesswork. It's not actionable at this point of view. It's just one of many probable scenarios. It's one that's been in the back of my mind for quite some time, that if we do see this type of environment, certainly that's going to be a risk on for altcoins in the market over the next several weeks. We saw that happen on Bitcoin over here, where we had one drive, price pulls back, second drive, price pulls back, third drive. You probably would have seen a divergence and then price sells off. Same again here. You kind of get this divergence with the RSI, and I don't think we're anywhere near this type of probable topping structure that we've seen. So I'm still fairly optimistic as it stands now, but like I said, if I have a reason to flip my bias, then I'll be very, very quick to flip my bias. And the key thing is, as a trader, you have to remain fluid with what the market presents you each and every day. That's all we can do. Okay, there's no point in telling you that, hey, I think price is going to go to 120, 130, 140. I honestly don't know where price will top out. I think all you have to do is just play the market each and every day, manage your expectations, and manage your risk to the downside. So that's kind of the higher time frame context. Now, if we look at the stock RSI, which is one of my favorite oscillators, again, we've pretty much nailed the low on this. If you look at the weekly, we talked about you don't want to be short in the market. You want to be buying these dips over here, okay, with the RSI at the lows on the weekly. And the fact that price couldn't break down into a trend, that's often a very strong indication of there's a probable move back to the range highs, if not higher. Now, one thing I would like to point out, that when markets are in a trending environment, these oscillators can remain overbought and oversold longer than you expect. So just something to bear in mind. Again, I wouldn't pay too much attention to this because, look, we could just correct for the next 2-3 weeks down to 85, down to 90. This may slightly oscillate to the 70 level, maybe underneath. And when you see something like this, this is where you get that second leg higher. You get this slight kink, oscillation pushes up, and you just get a candle that goes continuously higher. Classic example of this is this structure here. Look at this, right? RSI is rolling over. It's easy to assume that price is going to trade lower down again. You get that dip, pushes back up, and look at the expansion, continuation high in a bullish market. The bands are bullish, the trend is bullish. You want to flow with the trend. And for now, as far as I'm concerned, there's not any real concern in this market just yet, at least for the next week or two from a macro point of view. Okay, so that's one thing to bear in mind. And the other, I guess, is that you can also have this environment, which doesn't happen very often, which is the RSI is oscillating lower, price is consolidating, and then you get the break higher. Yet the RSI is oscillating up the low. So this can stay extended for weeks and weeks and weeks. So again, the only time I really use it is at key inflection points and key contextual environments. Hello, BTC Charlie and everybody else. Good to see you. Hello, Grant. So looking at the daily, what I like about the daily here, and again, we'll talk about trade setup shortly, but I just want to cover the high time frame aspects of the chart first. When you look at the daily stock RSI, if you've watched my videos, you'll understand how this is part of the foundations of what I do, right? And when you look at the daily RSI, the fact that price has been pretty much trading sideways for the best part. The daily RSI has oscillated lower whilst price has been trading higher. So I do believe that over the next 2, 3, 4 days, now that we are seeing potential early lows of the month, right? And I think one common observation that I've seen and I've talked about, and I think you should really pay attention to this, is that Bitcoin has this habit of establishing lows of the month at the start of each and every month for the best part of 2024. And you often see the highs of the month at the end of each calendar month. And I feel as though it's followed a similar pattern where at the end of November, you know, we've got the highs at 25th, 26th of November. We've got the monthly open prices now trading lower. Are we going to see that first week of price trading below the monthly open into a corrective structure, into a level of demand before price trades higher? And I think there's a really good chance that could happen. And again, that's the reason why I'm looking for long opportunities on Bitcoin over the coming week or so, but more so why I'm remaining heavily invested in altcoins, looking to maximize the returns to the upside over the next several weeks, at least the so-called Santa rally. So in a nutshell, long story short, I do believe that this will eventually oscillate at some point to the highs over the next week or two. And again, just to give you an idea of time frames, if you look at when Bitcoin previously, let's just use one example. We've got quite a few to choose from. We've got one here from the 3rd of October to the 10th, so that was a week. We've got one here from the 31st of August through to the 9th of September. So give or take 10 days of corrective price action to the downside. Okay, so you can see the highs. That was on the 26th. Price started rolling over, hit the lows on the 31st. This was that period in line with here. So 10 days, give or take 7 to 10 days of price action. Same again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days of corrective price action at the lows. So looking at price action here, we are at the lows. We've probably been in this region since the 27th of November. So again, something around maybe the 7th or the 8th. Who knows, right? But you just have to be reactive to price. So I think that's all I have to cover on the higher time frame, with my views, with my thoughts, and why I think, you just have to be patient. You're not going to see any significant moves, I feel, on Bitcoin. I still feel as though this is heavily range bound, and just looking for corrective structures over the next several days. Any questions? For altcoins, we're going to have another stream on Wednesday or Thursday, so I'll cover altcoins in more detail. I just want the first few days of the month to play out. It's only the 2nd, so look, I'll probably stream again on Thursday, maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. Let's just see how price action evolves, but I will absolutely be looking to stream again because I think there's going to be some very interesting trade setups on altcoins, looking for continuation higher on those altcoins that I feel have yet to move significantly higher. I'm not going to talk about, there's some questions in the chat about what happens in Q1, Q2. Look, at the end of the day, I'm just going to be completely honest. I don't know what's going to happen in Q1. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of December. All I know is, as we stand as a trader, I can only tell you what my next move is going to be or how I'm looking to play the market. And when I feel as though the signs of a top, just as I've done during the COVID crash, just as I've done in 2021 May, as I've done in 2021 November, and previous, local tops, then I'll just call it as I see it and just flip bias. If I'm looking for shorts, I'll tell you that I'm out of the market and I'm essentially looking for outright shorts. I just don't see the point in trying to time a top. I feel as though too many people have tried to be heroes and call the top at every point, and nobody's really got it right as of yet, which is clearly indicated by what we can see on the chart. I think there's it's still too early to call the top. You've got to let price develop before you get some sort of sense of the next major direction. And for now, like I said, I think this is a holding pattern, but we'll see what we get. We will cover distribution structures soon, Maureen. It's just a little bit too early. I don't want to scare people off. Right, moving on. Why did I short 99? Why did I short 99? One of the reasons, not the only reason, if you look at the heat map, we had... let me just refresh the chart. There we go, okay. Not sure why this is spazzed out, but it has. Just hasn't rendered properly on my screen for some reason. Just give me 1 second. It is what it is. But anyway. But look, long story short, one of the reasons is there was mind my language, but a fuck ton of asks resting at that 99 to 100k level. You can see prices being capped by that. The books are fairly stacked last week. So for me, that was the reason, one of many reasons, along with the flow, to start hedging out some of my Bitcoin exposure with a short. And that's just the nature of the game. You have to protect to downside risk. Now, the key thing for me is looking at the chart here. If we go into the 4 hour, there's two zones that I'm interested in. Okay, and if you recall what I tweeted yesterday, I don't know what Bitcoin does next. I don't know if this is compression and we see continuation higher, or we see a corrective move down. But there's two levels that I'm really interested in. So let's just talk about what those levels are. Looking at the heat map here, the first level for me is, I mean, you tell me, when you look at this, you can see the asks are fairly stacked, okay? There's about 1,000 in the books, 4.8% from the current price. And you've got a load of passive bids resting here. So I'm really looking to see what type of reaction we get into this 90K level. The second area that I'm interested in from a potential long is this zone here. So it's either going to be 85, 86, I feel, or is this going to be trend continuation consolidation where price keeps tapping the wicks, okay? And again, and maybe we're going to a deeper pullback, and then we see continuation higher at some point over the next several days. I'm not too sure, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's where I'm leaning towards. We'll just have to wait and see. When I look at Binance, it's pretty much the same. So I feel it's 90 or 85s for me, if I'm honest with you. Again, if you look at Binance here, we've got a stack of bids resting at 90K. What I want to see is how or whether these get pulled, or whether price trades into this level. Shorts are opening up, but these sells are being absorbed or soaked by price, and we see price pushing higher, respecting that form of compression that we could see play out, okay? And essentially, if they get pulled or price sells through that level, okay, there's a fair chance that these may puke their positions, pushing price into this level of demand, which is that 85, 86K level, confluent with these lows here. So from a heat map perspective, they're the two levels that I'm looking at. Okay. So that takes me on to the trade setup on Bitcoin. As you can see, we'll talk about this in a fairly simplistic manner. You can see very evidently clear we've got the highs. Okay, I do feel either this is going to evolve into a range bound environment, or like I said, are we going to see compression into the mid-level before we see continuation higher? Now, before we talk about those two scenarios, I think what's important is if you look at the weekly open, Bitcoin traded above the weekly open, broke below it, retested the underside, and sold off. And as well as the monthly open. So I'm not really surprised. Okay, this is kind of what I've alluded to on the timeline several days ago. I think it was around about the 27th or the 28th, maybe 3, 4, 5 days ago that I said, don't be surprised if Bitcoin trades early lows of the month heading into December. It's kind of been the same pattern. Don't be surprised if altcoins pull back in the first week of December monthly open. That's essentially what I was expecting. That's what we're seeing. And with that comes opportunity. So for those of you who are potentially so-called sidelined, I think we will see some very good trading opportunities. But for now, immediately, when I look at price, let's just talk about perhaps for those of you who are short or have shorted or have hedged, if you want to see continuation higher from this point, which I'm not convinced, I think there's more of a probable chance we come back and trade at least into this zone here. Okay, this is the first key demand zone that I'm interested in, confluent with the mid-range. Confluent with how I mark my trend lines is I use 3 trend lines. One is for the candle bodies, right? Candle body, candle body. So that's where I often mark the first trend line. Okay, that's the first trend line done. And the reason I do that, I don't use a single line as a trend line because you can get a lot of noise. Look at this, it breaks below, goes back above and trades higher. So I use it more of as a zone. So you've got the trend line on the candle bodies on the 4-hour chart. And then I use the wicks. Majority of the wicks are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially 8, 9. Okay, so what I'm looking for here, essentially, if we get the scenario of a shallow pullback, price trades into this demand zone, underside retest, stop at the low. I'm looking for a trigger at 91.92. What I need to see at this point is price potentially push back into the monthly. Now, we may just do something like this and then compress furthermore, but the minute we get above the monthly and the weekly open, I'm out of the shorts. I have to cut my shorts at that point because I feel as though that there's a very highly probable chance that we trade above the highs and we take out that 100K level. So that's the first setup or the first trigger that I'm looking for. And with that, I expect altcoins to get a continuation of price action to the upside for those altcoins that have showed strength. Is that clear? So I've given you my reasoning here that when you look at the heat maps, there's a stack of bids resting at that 91K level. If you look at price action, that 91K level comes in at the mid of this range into a demand zone that we've specified. Okay, round about here. You want to see some form of reaction into this zone. Now, I don't know whether we come and trade below this level and then get back above the level, then fine. I'm happy to take that trigger, okay? But as long as we see acceptance back above here, and it might just only be a trade up into the monthly or just to the range highs, and that's all it might, potentially that's all it might be. I don't know. But, you know, essentially you want to start seeing acceptance above the range highs. Now, I feel as though that scenario is the choppiest scenario. Perhaps the deeper scenario, which would be uncomfortable for many, and I think you have to just be open-minded to the possibility and probability that, look, if for whatever reason price does trade into this mid zone, reacts off the level, but the reaction is fairly timid, it's not strong enough, and we start rolling over again, then I think that opens a probability that we will see price trade this bound of the range between 92 or 91 down into 86, 85. What I'm looking for, if that should happen, you have to expect that altcoins at that point are likely to retrace 20, 30%. Okay, so I think you have to look at that as opportunity. I'm not sure whether that scenario plays out, but I'm prepared that if it does, this is the zone that I want to do my business in, okay, if we get that deeper pullback over here. But we're still a significant price point away from there. We've still got this area of contention, so my immediate focus is on this. Should that fail, or should we get a reaction but it's not strong enough, then we could see price trade into this region. And then I think at that point, I'm looking for a reaction, or at least these lows to hold. And I think at that point, again, if you look at previous corrections on Bitcoin, you are looking for buyers to step into the market. Go back to this structure here. We talked about this previously. So you're in this 30-day consolidation period. This was the high on the 8th of January. This was the low on the 27th of January. That's literally 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks of price action into a level of demand, which was here. Look how price reacts at these lows. These are the types of reactions that I want to see price wicking into these demand zones, being bought up very quickly, pushing away, retest, push away, continuation higher. That's one probable structure that we might see, okay? It could take 3 to 4 weeks, like I said, if we get the deeper pullback. The other structure, again, was when Bitcoin pushed higher. I'm not sure it's quite this structure, if I'm honest with you. The other structure which comes to mind is perhaps something like this. You know, do we see price grind higher? The pullbacks are shallow, then we see one more push up before we see a deeper pullback. So we can't rule that scenario out where, look, everything I've just said may not play out. We may just get that one scenario where, look, and I really don't want to see this, if I'm honest with you, because I'd much rather see a corrective move now over the next 2-3 weeks, because I think that would give me belief that we will probably see a stronger continuation into the remainder of December. If we can have the early pullbacks which I hope we get, instead of something like this, then you've got that 1, 2, 3 drives pattern, and then you get an aggressive sharp sell-off like this. I'd much rather not see this. I'd much rather see price during the next few weeks give me a correction, even if it's a slow bleed down, and then we get the continuation higher. Take out this, take out this, take out this, into this demand zone, respect the lows here, into a higher low, then we get the rip up into 110 and so forth. All right, so that's kind of my thought process. There's 2 levels that I'm looking to trade, wanting to trade. I'm hedged short. I have my spot exposure. I'm heavily positioned into altcoins. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens over the next few days. Looking at the daily stock RSI, looking at the heat maps, you know, a lot of the levels are lining up for me. So I think over the next few days, perhaps by next week, we will have some form of clearer direction, whether we're likely to trade this region here or whether this holds a support and we see compression into expansion, and then we get a pullback, a deeper pullback over the coming weeks, perhaps into January. We'll wait and see. Yes, no, all good, all clear. We're going to quickly go through some of the charts, and then I'm going to wrap up the stream. Let's keep it a short stream today. We've been on stream for half an hour, so perhaps 10 more minutes. I'm just going to whiz through very, very quickly some of the other charts. We'll start off on ETH BTC. Again, we've absolutely nailed the bottom on this. We talked about the weekly demand zone. We talked about the fact that this is coming also into a monthly block, into the 0.786. Sentiment is very, very bearish. I genuinely believe, or I'm hopeful and optimistic, that this is the start of the reversal on ETH BTC. And even if that means we're going to pull back into this and then continuation higher, I think once this moves, and again, mind my language, when this fucker moves, it moves, okay? You go back to looking at the previous cycle. ETH BTC did not move until when? March 2021. And if you remember, in the previous cycle, the market had already rallied into January, also going higher, February, March, April, May, also rallying in 2021. But yet ETH BTC was selling off. And it wasn't until very late into that first move of 2021, in a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, ETH literally wiped out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks of selling in 4 weeks. So when it moves, it moves. Okay. And again, you look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 weeks of selling. Do not be surprised if you see 1, 2, 3 weeks of relentless bullish price action to the upside on ETH BTC back into that mid-range of this entire macro range, okay? From this low to this high into the 0.786. And what I'm essentially looking for is that mean reversion play back into 0.5. After that, we'll see what happens. But given that structure, or this does play out over the next several weeks, then I do believe that ETH USDT will go on to make new all-time highs. And again, when you look at Bitcoin dominance, beautiful reaction from the 60% level. No surprise with altcoins moving, with ETH BTC reacting from its demand zone. So really, this is telling you now that the shift now is going into the beta assets, the altcoins. Look at XRP, look at LTC, look at Zcash, look at Dash. You know, I feel it as though it's very algorithmic. It's not just retail buying, but I also feel as though it's pretty much algorithmic. Algorithms are buying into those assets, okay? When you look at the price structures across those assets, they're very, very similar. So again, this is what I want to see now to get that appetite on altcoins, okay? And I'm looking for this continuation for the next, at least for several weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, to really feel as though we can maximize altcoins in December. I haven't covered Solana. I will cover Solana on the next stream. Today's stream is about Bitcoin, about Ethereum, total 2, total 3, Bitcoin dominance, context. Get the context right and you'll nail the context on the altcoins. Now let's move on to total. If you recall from last week's stream, I've lost my levels, great. If you recall from last week's stream, the level I talked about was this. I said, don't be surprised if we get a pullback into this level and continuation higher. So again, don't be surprised if at some point we do get another pullback into this level. That's your range. That's the range that you want to see hold. And this may happen if Bitcoin does trade down into the 85s. But that is a fantastic opportunity in the market as far as I'm concerned. Before we could potentially see continuation or at least a reaction higher. Okay. Now the next chart I want to show you is total 2. The question I'm asking myself, I'm not sure if we're going to get a deepest pullback as this. It remains to be seen. Okay. But look, let's just keep it simple. Clear the chart, right? And when I look at this and invert this, and I know this is fairly kind of a shit way of looking at markets, but sometimes it helps with people from a sentiment point of view. When you look at this market, you've got to be thinking to yourself, fuck, this is bearish, right? Surely these lows are going to get taken out. And if this was to provide a dead cat bounce into this level, you would absolutely short the shit out of this. Okay, so why is it any different that we get something like that? If there is a deeper pullback, whether it's a shallow pullback, whether it's a deeper pullback, we've had literally 5 weeks of expansion to the upside. You have to at some point expect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of expansion to the upside. You have to expect a corrective down candle before you see continuation higher. Look at what happened in 2021. Several weeks of expansion, one significant correction. Think of it as a spring, okay? This was a spring for price to pull back, buyers stepping into the market, people taking profits, stops getting run, price pushing up higher for the second leg, okay? Very healthy market price action. So any corrective move is certainly welcome. Now, the other way of looking at this from a total 2 perspective is look across the line. Look at what we have. Look across the line. Look at these lows here. I believe that when you map this out as a range, and should we get some pullbacks, if we get the pullbacks early in the month, then these are all buying opportunities as far as I'm concerned. And this is what we talked about in the previous stream, looking for those buying opportunities. So when you look at this to me is still fairly much, it's not a range, it's a trend, but I'm using the context of a higher time frame range. Now you can start plotting your mids of these zones and using them as an inflection point or a way to analyze whether there's strength or whether you want to be looking for lower prices on altcoins or total 2, whether it's going to pull back into this level or this level, whether Bitcoin's going to pull into 90K or is it going to be 85 before we see some form of continuation higher. That's what I'm leaning towards. When you look at the macro trend scanner, there's nothing to be concerned about as far as I can see. When you look at the RSI, still has room to go higher. We may just go sideways for a short period before we go higher up into these highs. This was at 98. This was at 86. We're at 71. This, I feel, has room to go higher yet, at least into these highs, I'd suspect. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm waiting for or wanting to trade to the context of the highs. And I don't think this is distributive at all. I really don't. You know, we might get a pullback, but you've got a level of support here, so wouldn't be too concerned. Looking for buying opportunities still. Look at total 3. Again, approaching those highs now. Okay, so at some point, if we are going to break these highs and continue higher, same again, RSI at 77, I'm looking for something to potentially tap this, or maybe we get a pullback shallow, okay? And then continuation higher into new all-time highs. All right, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So for now, I feel as though it's buy the pullback opportunities in the market and look for continuation higher over the next several weeks. But so far, we've had a great year. Everything I've said, everything I've talked about, the patience, the timing, you know, nailing the Bitcoin buys, nailing the positioning of the altcoins. It was in, if you go back to my first stream when I came back on stream in September, we talked about this is it now. Q4 is the time to start positioning into those altcoins. And I feel as though we've done that very, very well. I'm now getting asked by people, XO, what coin can I jump into? Where shall I jump in? What can I buy? But I personally feel the time to buy was several weeks ago. We had the lows on November the 5th. We had the lows on October, the first week of October. We had some good buying opportunities in September, like Solana at 110s, 120s. It's played out very, very well. Now, the one aspect that I will talk about is the Solana ETH chart. I think I even covered, I literally longed, I think I said this, I don't know why I've still got this here, but I said, shifted some Bitcoin into ETH, come at me, bros. And this is on the 22nd of November, literally at the high. So I do feel as though Solana ETH might have just topped, you know. I really do think there's a good chance it could have topped, and we could see flows back into Ethereum, into the ETH utility plays and so forth. That's not to say Solana can't go higher, but I think there's certainly going to be some really good opportunities on elsewhere, let's just say. Okay, we'll cover the Solana chart very quickly. But again, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, all right, give me a pullback into the 200s. This is the SR level that you want to see a reaction from. Okay, I don't know what the trigger would be just yet, but I'm essentially looking for something around here. If I get a pullback into this level, we'll cover this on the next stream on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday to be confirmed. But I'm essentially looking for 2-3 weeks of correction, just like we saw on Bitcoin, right? Look at this over here. Solana, all-time highs. 1-2 weeks of correction, third week expansion, consolidation, continuation higher. So I'm looking for this. Who knows? Could be the big deviation. Could be the big D in January. You know what happens then, don't you? It's play time. All right, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It could go higher. I'm not sure. I'm not going to call the top until I believe it's the top. So yeah, for now, continuation. Looking for continuation for as long as this level holds here. Any deeper pullbacks into here, fine. As long as it is short-lived, then you've got to go. The one setup that I will cover before I end the stream is WIF. I talked about this on the timeline yesterday. It certainly wasn't this one. It was this chart here. There we go. So on WIF, again, if you look at the weekly structure here, and before we look at the weekly structure, congratulations. If you caught the trade with me, we talked about buying the pullback into the mid of this zone. And I essentially took profit at the highs at 450. That's where my sell limits were. And now, for the first time in 4 weeks, I'm looking for a buying opportunity on WIF. Look at this expansion to the upside. 1, 2, 3 weeks of corrective price action. There's our monthly open at 343. We're trading below the monthly open. What I would like to see, if Bitcoin trades the 90k level over the next week or so, I do believe this will present another long opportunity. It's got to be somewhere in this zone here. Okay, I don't know where, but if we see price essentially push below into this block here, back above the mid, that's my trigger. $2.93 $3. I'm looking for price to go back to the highs, trading this range here. Is that clear? When you look at the daily stock RSI, it should be at the low. It is at the lows. Okay, so again, is this likely to roll over one more time before we see a move to the highs? So just a period of consolidation, rounded bottoms, and then we see continuation higher. Oh, just one quick thing I forgot to mention. I should have mentioned on today's stream, which is if you look at Bitcoin. Well, let me just go here. Yeah, when you look at this, I mean, what you tell me, what you guys leaning towards in the chart? Do you think we get a correction into 92s, or do you think it's going to be 85s, where we might get a probable reaction from? Don't really care what the US has done, whether they've moved coins, whether it's to cold storage or a cold wallet. You know, at the end of the day, all I care about is price action. That's all that matters to me. So 92s is around about here. That's going to be a compressive type continuation like that. Okay. Which is good for altcoins. And this will be very good for Bitcoin and the broader market. The other possible scenario, which I didn't really want to discuss, but I'm not sure whether we get something like this. If you look at price action here, are we in this environment? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Are we really going to go sideways for another, let's say, 5th of December to 9th of February, 3 months of price action sideways? I'm not sure. I mean, it'd be great for altcoins if we did, but I'm not sure. But what I wanted to show you was essentially, just to wrap up today's stream, is a trend scanner. Look at the 4 hour. It's flipped, just about flipped bearish. Price is retesting the monthly open. If we get a push above, then I have to cut the short. I'm expecting continuation higher. Ideally, I'd like to see this trade at first, or this, to really position heavily into a long, look for continuation higher. All right, I think that's all there is really to it. There's really not much more I wish to cover today. We've kept the stream to 40 minutes, so we'll catch up in 3 days, 4 days time. Let's just see what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin gives me a reaction from this level here, I'll stream. If it doesn't, I'll probably be looking for this, and then we'll figure out some sort of stream to take advantage of this scenario here and how I'm looking to trade it then. ETH USDT. All right, okay. Did I miss ETH USDT? I probably did. Same really. I mean, when you look at price, I'm not concerned. I think, again, just looking at this, I think there's every possibility that we trade these highs. We've just had 4 weeks of expansion, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the question I'm asking myself again is, are we likely to see this type of price action? Look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, this kind of continuation pattern. So whether it's going to be something similar, and then you get the expansion higher. Okay, mid-December, maybe. You want to see early lows of the month. Mark out the monthly open. If you know the monthly open strategy, then it's acceptance back above the monthly and it's game on. Right, so again, just mapping out the monthly open here. Go to the daily. We have, in terms of a range, if you just clear the chart, in fact, just simple range that stands out to me is this here. Range high, range low. You can probably throw in a mid here. Somewhere, give or take there and there. Okay, that's your mid range, essentially. So you've got your monthly open. That's your monthly open there. See, it's very easy to do, just a matter of a few seconds. Before you know it, I've got my trade plan set up. There's the demand zone that I want to see, price structure. high, higher low, higher highs, higher low. Give me a pullback into 33s, 34s, hold, rounds, continuation, reclaim the monthly, then we take out the highs. Okay, that's what I'd be looking for. Might get a deeper pullback into 30, into this zone, okay? But I really don't want to see price. If we get the deeper pullback, what you should look for, and I'll show you an example of this, is essentially, you see these lows here? We might just take out these lows. Okay, if it is the deeper pullback, that's kind of the range that I want to see price trade. And if you go to the 4-hour chart, that's the range I'd want to trade. Okay, you got your monthly high, call it local 4-hour range high. You can even just really refine it however you want. You could essentially do this as your range lows, this as your range highs. You're looking for a reason to bid price based upon the higher time frame. There's your mid-level. If for whatever reason we find acceptance below this level, then you've got to be looking into here, okay, as a bid. That 33 level, 34. If it swing fails all of this into this demand zone here, then you're doing at 32s, back above, back to the highs. 2 zones, I'd be looking to long if we get the pullback into 33s. Again, it just remains to be seen ultimately what happens next, okay? And I think much of this really depends upon Bitcoin. What Bitcoin does next. Does it hold the level? Does it continue higher? If it does, great. I'm sure many of us have got altcoin exposure. Or does it trade lower? We'll just have to wait and see. But like I said, I'm still looking for risk-on longing opportunities in the market. Total 3 top target, I'll tell you on the next stream. But that's it for today. Okay, hope you've enjoyed the stream. I really wish you all a fantastic, blessed December ahead. And I think on the next stream, we'll talk about altcoin setups, okay? Maybe in the next 2-3 days. But today was, again, about the higher time frame context, looking at total 2, total 3, looking at Bitcoin dominance, looking at ETH, looking at Solana ETH, and essentially we'll talk about altcoins in the next few days. All right, apart from that, have a great week ahead, and I'll catch you then. Take care.